God had told Elijah to anoint Elisha as the next prophet. It says this. So Elijah, the current prophet, the crazy one, the awesome one, went and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, plowing a field. There were 12 teams of oxen in the field, and Elisha was plowing with the 12th team. So not only was he was plowing with the last of the last team. Elijah went over to him and threw his cloak across his shoulders and walked away. Now, in that time, this is very significant. The cloak was like the sign of a prophet. Like, you knew you were a prophet if you had that cloak on. So he goes over and he puts this cloak on Elisha, and he's like, hey, this is you now. Like, you're next. God's got a plan for your life. God's got a call for you. This is a very cool moment in Elisha's life, because he's like, oh my gosh, like, I tell you guys this, I think, every single week. Like, God has a plan for your life. God has a calling. That's me giving you that cloak. Like, hey, you might not be on stage with Mike. Maybe you will. But maybe you're called to be just a husband or a wife, or maybe just a great business person, maybe just a great high schooler, maybe a great college student. Maybe that's what God has called you to be right now. And this is Elisha's moment where he's hearing, man, God has called me to something great. And so Elisha's thinking, this is it. This is my big break. Like, this is what God's called me to do. I'm going to go do something great. I'm the next prophet. Elijah just anointed me. Here we go. And this is how Elisha responds to being told God's got a plan for your life. God wants you to be the next prophet. God wants you to hear for him and live for him. This is how he responds to that. It says this in 1 Kings 19:21. It says, so Elisha returned to his oxen, and he slaughtered them. He used the wood from the plow to burn a fire and roast their flesh. He passed around the meat to the townspeople, and they all ate. Then he went with Elijah, his assistant. In the verse in between, we read 19 and 21. In the verse in between, Elisha went to Elijah and said, hey, hold on. Can I go talk to my father first? Can I go see my family? And Elijah says, go do what you got to do. But he doesn't go back and ask his father for his inheritance. He doesn't go back and ask his father for help, or for his will, or for money, or for his plot of land. He goes back, kisses his father on the cheek, and burns his plows, and slaughters his oxen. This is very significant, because a lot of times when we think of God's call for our life, we're like, yes, I'm going to give God my future. I'm going to do something great for God in the future. Like, God's got something for me when I'm older. God's got something great for me. Can I tell you something? It's really easy to give God your future, because you don't have it yet. It's easy to give up something that you don't have. What's hard is giving God what you have right now. What's hard is saying, God, I'm anxious right now. Like, what are you going to do about that right now? Like, I can't sleep right now. Like, I don't know what to do with my next step. I'll give you my future, but what the heck do I do tomorrow? What do I do today? Like, what do I do with these friends that I have? What do I do with this temptation that's in my life? What do I do with this addiction that I keep running to? What do I do with this thing that I keep letting heal my pain, but it never really heals my pain? Like, what do I do with this thing that I go to for my anxiety, but it just causes more anxiety? What do I do with my right now? And Elisha gave us a picture of what to do. What Elisha did here is very deep, because he knew that his next step was a step into his destiny. He knew that his next step was a step into everything that God had called him to do. So he went back to that thing that he had attached himself to. Now, I want you to know something. Elisha's parents were rich. You don't have 12 teams of oxen working on your father's land without having some money, right? Like, this dude had a lot of land to farm. He had a lot of oxen, and in that day, that was cash flow. He had a lot of workers there, right? Like, he fed the townspeople. That town was probably his dad's. Like, if he has the power to go and do that, that was all Elisha's. He had an inheritance, he had riches, he had a job, he had security, he had his parents. His parents probably had a beautiful home. Like, he had everything. But he went back and he said, you know what? I'm never going to allow myself to return to this thing. I'm not even going to give myself the option to come back here. I'm going to burn my plow. Man, what plow do you need to burn in your life? What is it in your life that it's like that's what you go back to when you need safety? That's what you go back to when the whole God thing's not working out. Like, when I don't really know how to feel or how to trust or where to go or how to pray, I'm just going to go back to this thing, because this brings me comfort. This makes me feel good. This makes me feel like it's okay. Man, we need to burn those things up and allow God to to lead us and to guide us, and to know that I am going to step out in faith, knowing that God will supply my every need, knowing that God has a call and a plan for my life, that he gave God everything in that moment, everything that could have kept him. And what he had was not a bad thing, but what he had was not the best thing. Sometimes what we run to isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's like, I just like to talk about my friends about my problems. I just like to go to that thing. Like, I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, it's just a show. It's just whatever. It's just something that I cling to whenever I'm upset. It's not that big of a deal. But it's not the best thing for your life. Man, God knows what is best for your life, and all he wants you to do is run to him. Run to him when you have an issue. Run to him whenever you're feeling some type of way. Like, run to him whenever you're anxious. Run to him whenever you can't sleep. Run to him whenever you wake up in the middle of the night feeling that feeling again. Run to him when you feel lonely. Run to him when you feel broken. Run to him when you feel like you can't forgive that person. Or you feel like you can't forgive yourself. Or you feel like he can't forgive you for that thing. Can I tell you, he will. He wants to. God wants to lead you and guide you. He has amazing plans for your life. Seniors, God has an amazing plan for your life. He has something far greater than you could ever imagine for you. But you have to be able to say, I'm not going to go back to that thing. I'm not going to allow that thing, that voice, that whatever to control my life. I'm going to give my life to God, and I'm going to trust him above all else. That's what Elisha did. It goes on. We're going to fast forward now to 10 years in Elisha's life. So Elisha gets the cloak thrown on him. He's anointed king, or he's anointed prophet. He's pumped. He goes to follow Elijah. He burned his plow, so he can't go back. He's thinking, God's got amazing things for me. Here we go. What am I going to do? Give me an assignment. And for 10 years, he carries Elijah's cloak, washes his feet, carries his sandals, watches him do miracles, watches him meet people's needs, watches him be praised, watches him be the prophet, watches him do everything he knew God had called him to do. He's like, wait, didn't you put the cloak on me? Didn't you say I was called? Didn't you say like this was my job now? Why am I just following you around? But Elisha was faithful. He was faithful with what God had called him to do. So for 10 years, he was faithful to Elijah. And Elijah goes to Elisha and he says, it's time for me to go. I'm going to walk on to this mountain. And Elisha says, I'm not letting you get out of my sight. So he follows him. He's faithful to him again. And he says, no, it's time for you to be the prophet. I'm going to go and I'm going to talk with God. He said, I'm not letting you out of my sight. I'm following you. And he continued to stay with Elijah. Finally, we get to this point in the story in 2 Kings. We're in a new book now. It's been that long. 2 Kings 2:9. It says, when they came to the other side, Elijah said to Elisha, okay, tell me what I can do for you before I'm taken away. Elijah was one of 2 men in the Bible that didn't die. He was, and then he was not. He was taken up with the Lord. He never died. He was just literally taken to heaven. Really cool story, but we're not getting there.